60 miles deep into the Antarctic ice shelf, the silence becomes as thick as glass. Thousands of emperor penguins stand motionless like stone guardians of the night, protecting a single treasure, an egg that would perish in minutes if it touched the ice. They huddle together in tight groups, hungry, exhausted, pushed to the limit, and it all seems like a miracle that shouldn't be possible. Logically, complex life shouldn't exist here. No mammals, no birds capable of starving for months in the harshest conditions on the planet, while simultaneously incubating their young. Nevertheless, emperor penguins choose this path generation after generation. This dense, circular, living wall, the huddle, is the point where their story begins. But this is only part of a larger cycle that spans thousands of kilometers and involves 6 main species living at the edge of the ice world.
Antarctica is not just cold. It is a desert in the most literal sense of the word. The lowest precipitation and vast expanses of ice where snow, when it falls, practically never melts. It compacts and over years turns into the thick mass of the ice sheet. Inland, the annual precipitation can be less than 2 centimeters in the form of snow. What falls stays. The wind is a separate enemy. Gusts that easily reach hurricane speeds blow away heat, turning the perceived temperature to dangerous levels where exposed skin freezes in 2 minutes. The ice itself does not stand still. It slides, cracks, breaks apart, and gives birth to icebergs that drift away until warmer water erodes them from within. Coastlines where the ice is attached to land might exist for 1 or 2 years and then disappear. Nothing here is stable, except for one thing. Life has learned to use this instability as a resource. Antarctica is home to the largest penguin colonies on Earth. Emperors gather in the tens of thousands, kings in the hundreds of thousands on specific islands. Other species form dense clusters in their niches. These are places where, according to common sense, life should have lost, but it remains, not by chance, but as a result of an ancient bargain between the species and the environment. Every feather, every dive, every minute in the huddle is a compromise with the cold. While many animals flee from winter towards the ocean or to warmer latitudes, penguins do the opposite. They begin to breed when Antarctica is at its most unforgiving. It is precisely during the polar night, when the sun disappears below the horizon and temperatures drop to their annual minimum, that the penguins move inland onto the ice, to a place where a wide, flat, and by sea ice standards, stable surface can support the colony. The logic of survival here is brutal but precise. When the sea ice reaches its maximum possible extent, it forms a platform large enough to host thousands of birds and protect them from marine predators. If the penguins were to wait for summer, the ice would break up prematurely and the chicks would end up in open water. Therefore, they go early, in long rows in the darkness, leaving the ocean for a patch of ice that seems empty to us, but for them is the only chance. Each female lays a single egg, one chance, one life on the line. The transfer of the egg from the female to the male must be flawless. If it touches the ice for a second, it will freeze solid. After the transfer, their paths diverge. The females return to the sea to feed and regain their strength. The males remain to bear the entire burden of incubation during the darkest and coldest months. 4 months in darkness. 4 months without food, with a slowed metabolism, with dwindling fat reserves, during which a bird's weight can drop by almost half. Storms intensify. The wind and frost attempt to squeeze the life right out of the bird's feathers. And then, an outstanding natural invention enters the arena: the huddle. This is not just a crowd. The huddle is a mobile, self-regulating system. The birds move slowly, exchanging places on the outside for those on the inside in a wave-like motion, so that no one dies from prolonged exposure on the edge. There is no leader, no conductor. There is cooperation embedded in the species' behavior. Inside the huddle, the temperature can rise to a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius, while outside, the wind and frost approach lethal levels. The male holds the egg on his feet, covering it with a fold of skin. It must always be kept above the cold, always protected. If the egg slips, it's the end. Therefore, the bird is forced to stand almost motionless, withstanding the wind, hunger, and the physical pressure of the colony. Day after day, week after week, the months pass under this relentless rhythm. And then, as the light slowly returns and the winds subside, the moment of the miracle arrives. A quiet, faint sound from under the down, the first cries of the newborns. The males can barely stand from exhaustion. The females return from the ocean, having fed their fill and regained some fat, and an incredible scene begins. The pair finds each other among thousands of voices, recognizing one another by their unique call. The transfer of the chick is swift and precise. With the chick handed over, the male, many of whom have been pushed to the brink of survival, finally returns to the ocean to try and regain his strength. This journey is no less perilous. After 100 or more days without food, the path to the sea is an ordeal that not all survive. Those who reach the water dive frantically, immediately replenishing their energy reserves with the summer's bounty. But for the newborns, life is just beginning. The ice begins to respond to the light. First, a thin blue line on the horizon, then a pale glow that grows, lengthens shadows, and brings back color. The Antarctic seems to start breathing. The ice retreats, cracks, and thins, and with the thaw comes movement in the ocean. With the first rays of the sun, the water comes to life. Microscopic plants, phytoplankton, burst into green life, multiplying many times over. This bloom creates the foundation for an entire food chain. The phytoplankton are followed by krill, billions of tiny crustaceans that make up the bulk of the Southern Ocean's forage biomass. The importance of precise timing here cannot be overstated. If spring arrives too early or too late, the associated prey might not coincide with the bird's needs. As the coastlines come to life, other species return to the shores. Adelie penguins, bold and compact, build their nests out of pebbles on rocky areas. Slightly further afield, other species occupy their own territories, preferring open, ice-free shores and a more flexible breeding strategy. Chinstrap and gentoo. Each species chooses its own niche, often in delicate synchronicity with the krill boom. At the same time, marine predators awaken on the coasts. Seals slip between broken ice floes to hunt. Leopard seals lie in wait for young penguins at the edge of the water. Giant petrels circle above the coastline, ready to exploit any weakness. And orcas, dividing roles within their pods, coordinate the hunt alone or in groups. Summer is a season of abundance, but also a season of danger. For most species, summer is a brief respite, a window when the ocean is generous. But far inland, the emperors still hold their newborns. Their timeline is offset from the coast, and these two rhythms, the coastal and the icebound, rarely coincide perfectly. Differences in strategy arise not just from biology, but from geography. Where a colony chooses to live is where its fate is written. One of the most dramatic examples is the island chain of South Georgia, a place where summer erupts in almost paradisiacal conditions compared to the continent. Here, the water is rich in nutrients. Ocean currents bring food to the surface, and as a result, some of the most productive marine ecosystems are formed. On the narrow strip of St. Andrews Bay, million-strong colonies of king penguins look like a living carpet of black, white, and gold. King penguins do not go inland onto the ice. They do not incubate in the dark. Their strategy is a different solution, a slow, drawn-out breeding cycle, sometimes stretching over 14 months or more. While the emperor expends incredible energy to survive the polar night, the king invests in the stability of the ocean and in its own longevity. Their colonies are cities where the crush of adults and chicks resembles human streets at rush hour.
But even on the warmer periphery of the environment, conditions do not mean safety. On rocky ledges and steep shores live smaller species, rockhoppers, macaronis, Magellanics, and many others. They use their own unique tricks, leaping into the turbulent surf, burrowing into the soil, nesting in dense scrub. For them, flexibility and speed are the best survival tools in a constantly changing land of light and ice. Today, the climate is changing faster than many species can evolve. The Antarctic Peninsula is warming at a rate that surprises scientists. Glaciers are melting, snowfall patterns are changing, sea ice forms later and breaks up earlier. This shifts the delicate timing that Adelie and chinstrap penguins have relied upon, and colonies are shrinking where stable traditions once thrived. At the same time, some species are finding new opportunities. Gentoos are expanding their ranges southward, occupying new open waters and beaches inherited from the retreating ice. But one species' gain is often another's loss. With the mass decline of krill, the keystone of the food web, it is not just one population that sinks into vulnerability, but the entire ensemble of species. The changes are visible everywhere, from the shrinking of sandy beaches to the new character of the storms, from the disappearance of ice platforms to the changing nature of the currents. Penguins have long lived on the edge of the permissible. Now that edge is moving,
and every species faces a choice: adapt, move, or accept the risk of disappearing from the places where they once belonged. This story is not just a collection of beautiful pictures of animals in tuxedos. It is a tale of the routine, grueling, and majestic work of survival, of birds that cannot fly in the air but perform stunning underwater flights, of the endless compromises between the body and the environment, of how ice, light, and the ocean write the calendar for the lives of millions of creatures. And yet, in this harsh drama, there is a place for hope, in the ability of species to change their routes, in the flexibility of their behavior, and in the strength of an ecosystem that, with a fortunate turn of events and our sensible protection, can continue to support this amazing coexistence of life and ice. But hope requires action, an understanding of what is changing, and a readiness to protect the delicate synchrony that allows the penguins to continue their ancient dances at the edge of the world. This is the impossible life of penguins, a story of how millions of creatures, year after year, return to the same piece of ice, risking everything for the continuation of their kind. It is a story of endurance, collective care, and the fragility of those rhythms without which the entire Southern Ocean would cease to sound as it does now.